Welcome to the Yukon in North 61. I was at my dealer today and they were telling me that folding knives aren't coming across the Canadian border because some confusion that the Canadian Border Service have about what's legal and what isn't. And so I thought I'd do another video on folding knives for hunting. If you look at all those folding knives there, I've used them all on big game. So what have I learned? Okay, these knives are either Spyderco's or by Tim Wegner's Blade Tech. I've been designed by three people. One was Tim Wegner. The other one was a guy called Scott, who was a South African, who was a market hunter. And the other guy was, I think, Sal Glacier developed one of these knives. So let's take a look at them. I will start with my favorite knife of all time. This is the Spyderco C48 Tim Wegner Hunter. It's got that nice Spyderco hole, so it opens up nice. It's got that thwack. It's got a beautiful handle. It's got big steel spacers there, which means this is the heaviest knife of the whole bunch. This is a 5-ounce, 5.3-ounce knife, and that gives it a wonderful balance. It's beveled, it fits nicely in the hand, and this blade shape, there's a subtle difference between all these Wegner designs. That is the pointiest of them all, and for whatever reason that allows me to start my cuts better, and it's still got just enough sweep to make for a good skinner. So that ergonomically is the knife for me. It's got all the little pieces, all the little angles that just make all the difference. I've gone with friends, and we've got 4 or 5 caribou at a time. And people want to use this knife when they've used it once. Even if you compare it to Tim Wegner's own design, there's very little difference between these two knives, and yet people will reach for the Spyderco and not for the Tim Wegner Pro Hunter. The Pro Hunter's lighter. It's got this kind of a see-through piece there, so it's easy to clean. They're both liner locks. The blades are very similar, but there's just enough difference, and just a little bit straighter just makes a huge difference for ergonomics. And for whatever reason, that's got the choil, it's got jimping, it's got all sorts of things that Tim Wegner really bragged about. Didn't do as good a job for me as this original C48. This is a super classic. Second place for me is this Ocelot. The Ocelot, I find that blade just a little bit short. I like the choil. You can do really nice detail work for this, with this. Those little Ocelot paw prints give it kind of a classic look. It also gives it good grip. It's nice in the hand again. They fill up with gunk a little bit, and it's a lock back, so it does fill up with gunk. But if you're a careful hunter, it's pretty good. That's got a really nice shape and feel to it as well. It's got a little bit more curve, so it's a better skinner, and it's got enough point. It's a good little knife too. This is a knife the Ed Scott designed. It's called the Impella. That's a Spyderco. That's VG10, which is a lovely steel. Not enough point. I like this for moose because it's got a nice curve there for skinning, and you do a lot of skinning on a moose. But it's hard to stick this through it's just not quite pointy enough. It's hard to stick it through the skin to get started. Where the Wegner is easy. It's still a really nice knife, but you almost want to have another knife to get the thing started. Once it's started, it's really, really good. But not quite enough point for me for the one all-around use. Still a really good knife. Here's the other version of the Scott. Really nice knife again. It's got a gut hook. I have no use for a gut hook. I don't know what they're for. They jump up with hair. I just have never had much use for them. And I also have very little use for serrations, especially thick serrations like that. So this knife, I just don't use. I should probably sell it. These were cheap Blade Tech versions of the Wegner design. Pretty good, a little less pointy again, so I don't like it as much. What I don't mind is I don't mind the Blade Tech serrations because they're very, very fine serrations, and actually they don't cause you too much trouble. So if you have to have serrations, those are nice serrations. They do keep an edge a long time, serrations, but they're not as smooth cutting as a straight edge. So I'm still not a fan of the serrations even when they're that fine, but at least those are usable. The little guy is light. It's just over 2 ounces, and it's got that lovely Wegner shape. And because it's nice and small, it's got the see-through construction. It's the Pro Hunter Light. It's also got really good distal taper, so that tip of that is like a razor blade. So if I ever get fit enough to go sheep hunting, that's my sheep knife. Light, really nice usable blade, like a razor blade right at the edge. Really, really nice for fine work. Not a heavy duty blade. You could break that end if you're trying to abuse it, but don't abuse it. This is the C49 Spyderco Wegner. So it's the small, it's the little brother to this guy. Unfortunately, the only one I've ever found is with the serrated blade, so I don't use that too much. But if I got one of these in a straight blade, that might be the ultimate do-everything knife because it's a nice small size. And I think now that I've got to be a pretty good meat processor, I think I could probably do everything right up to moose and bison with a knife that big. These Wegners are ATS 34 steel, good steel. It's kind of old-fashioned now, but back in the day, that was the best steel going. So again, just to reiterate, point, sweep, ergonomics, nothing beats this. I just can't get over what a great design this was. And like everything else, I don't know who said when you find something that works, buy two, because they won't make it very long, but that seems to be the fact. When you get really, really good gear, you should probably hang on to it, take care of it, maybe even consider buying two. This has never been equaled in my mind. All the knives that I've used, this is like super classic. The C38 Spyderco Wegner, just a brilliant design.